Okay, I'm going to walk you through the first part of the dissection. Remember, you should have all your tools set up. You have this on the tray, wearing your gloves, apron by choice, and then you have a partner who is the direction reader, okay? So you have your name written on the outside here, and there is a purpose for that. So what you're going to do is kind of get to here's the apex of your heart, where it comes to like that point right here. We're going to use that as our guide. And we're going to take the scissors, okay, and we are going to cut along here. Here we go. Cut along here, cut off essentially the top of this bag. Okay. All right. So, see? Caught that, don't let it fall. You can see there's some juice at the bottom. So set this on the tray for a moment, okay? What you're going to want to do now is reach in, take the heart out. I'm going to kind of squeeze it a little bit so I get all of that kind of juice. Okay, pull it out, set it on the tray. Then I'm going to take this bag with all of the juice. It came out of a Ziploc bag. I'm going to put that inside of here. Okay, I want to save that. I'm also going to put this label, this top part with my name, well, both of my name and my partner's name, and put it so that it's facing out. Do you see that? Okay, so inside this bag, I have all of it. Now I'm going to close it temporarily so that that juice does not spill out. Okay. Now I'm going to focus on the heart, okay? And this right here is the apex. So this is where the left ventricle is, right here. That tells me automatically. All right, do you see these little floppy things right here? Here's one, and here's one, okay? So those are the atria. Like, look how small they are. These are the ventricles, okay? You know, kind of give a sense and feel the heart. Right? These vessels right here, okay, are those coronary vessels, right, that are going to supply the blood flow to the heart itself, okay? So we're going to label a few things, okay, and we're going to use the pins, okay? So we're going to take the white one and put that at the apex, okay? Then we are going to take the black one and we're going to label the left ventricle, okay? So which is really where the apex is, okay? But we're going to make sure that we have the white one closer to the point that right here of the heart. Now right above the left ventricle is going to be the left atrium. So we're going to use red, and that's going to be this right here. So I'm going to put this in that, okay, so I can tell where it is pointing. And then we are going to use a light blue and label the right ventricle. So that's going to be this other muscular part right here. And then the right atrium, we're going to use the green, and it's going to be this little floppy thing right here. So I'm going to put this right here. Okay, and at this point, you are going to add one more label, and we're going to do yellow to label where one of those coronary vessels is. So you see how I have to have it right on that vessel. So none of my other pins should be directly on a vessel, okay? And I'm going to take a picture at this point. You should be able to see all of the pins clearly, all right? And so now I'm going to take them out, okay, so I don't get stuck with pins, and I continue examining. All right, so remember, this was left ventricle, this was left atrium, this is right ventricle, this is right atrium. We had our apex, the point of that left ventricle, and we had the coronary vessels, okay, that supply blood flow to the actual heart. All right, now we're going to move on to the next part. All right, now we are going to look at some of the vessels, okay? So we're going to be focusing on this top part of the heart here. Okay, so the easiest one to spot is usually the aorta. So you can see it has, it's the highest part of the heart up here, but also you can clearly see on this one especially, and they usually preserve it pretty well, you can see 3 different vessels branching off. One is going to go to head and neck, one to the right arm area, one to the left arm area, and then it's going to loop around down, but that part of the inferior aorta, as it coming down the descending, is not usually captured in the dissection. So this 3-pronged one, that's easy to spot, is the aorta. It's also going to be the highest part right here, okay? Now, also, kind of another easy one to spot. If I pull this aorta back, you're going to see this vessel right here, which, if I follow it, comes out right here. And if I put my finger in here, okay, I'm going to end up on this side. It is coming out of this right ventricle. So this is the pulmonary artery going to the lungs. So again, you can easily see the aorta, this top part, and then if you pull it back, you can see the vessel that comes across like this. Okay, and it's going to loop and it's going to go to the lungs. Okay. Now I have to find 2 more vessels. Okay, so now you see I flip the heart over, I'm looking at the back. Okay, and then this one is not as thick. I'm going to try to kind of open it, okay, till I kind of get in here and put my finger in, and see I can move this. So let's lay it flat with my finger in here. I'm moving this one. Left ventricle, right ventricle. So this is the right atrium. So what is leading into the right atrium? Coming from the top, superior vena cava. Right? Now, this one, if I put my finger through like this one is going to be coming up the inferior vena cava. Okay? So here's the inferior. I don't have much of it preserved on here, but the superior definitely. Okay. Now what I'm going to try to find, coming into this left atrium. So remember, let's position ourselves. Apex, left ventricle, left atrium. I'm going to try to find the vessel that gets into that left atrium. And it's usually, you can find it along the back here. Might be, nope, this one, nope, okay, this one just might not, oh, possibly, this one not as well preserved. I might be able to find it when I cut this open because I don't see a clear path of one leading in, okay, so it's hard for me to spot it. So I'm going to label what I can. So I'm going to hold it like this, okay, and label the 3 main ones that I can clearly see. So you definitely have to get these. So purple, okay, I'm going to label the aorta. Oops. So remember that one was up here. So I'm going to make sure it goes into the vessel. This is some fat for protection. This was the pulmonary artery. I'm going to do that one pink. And then I have that superior vena cava going into that right atrium. So I'm going to use yellow for that one, for that superior vena cava. Okay, so just get that stuck in there. Okay, and then I'm just going to put that right atrium label back in, which was green. And that left atrium label back in, which was red. Okay. Now you could see right atrium, left atrium, superior vena cava, aorta, and pulmonary artery. That is all you should have labeled. I know we looked for a couple others, didn't really have too much success. You probably won't either, and that's okay. Label this with these pins, take a picture. Okay. Then we are going to remove the pins and then continue with the dissection. All right, so far we have taken 2 pictures, and let's just review the heart again before we move on. So apex, left ventricle, left atrium, right ventricle, right atrium, coronary vessels. We have the aorta, that superior vena cava leading into the right atrium. And then we have this pulmonary artery leading to the lungs. Okay, then we will move on. All right, here's where we're going to move on. So before we continue, we're going to take some measurements. Okay, so the measurements that we're going to take, we're going to not count the blood vessels up here. We're going to measure how, I guess we could call this height, how tall the heart is, the height. Okay, so we're going to measure this way, and we are going to use, make sure you use the centimeter scale. Do not use inches, okay, centimeters. And then we are going to measure the width. So you can see I'm going to go about midway between where I just measured and measure that across in centimeters. All right, and then what I want to do is find one of these aortic branches right here, and I want to measure in centimeters the width of that vessel. Okay, so how wide is that vessel? All right, and those are kind of the easiest ones to take a measurement for. So again, looking from the front. Okay, so I'll model it again. You're going to use the centimeter side of the ruler. Okay, I'm going to measure the height of the heart like this. Okay, and then you're going to measure about midway, going to measure the width, and then you're going to tip the heart up and look at one of the aortic vessels and measure the width. Again, all of this should be in centimeters. Okay, now I'm going to set this ruler on the tray since I've used it. Okay, and it's kind of got a little juicy on it, so I don't want it to contaminate anything else. All right, then we're ready to move to the next step. All right, here's where we're moving on to this. So we're going to take the scalpel. So be very careful, okay? This one is a little bit rusty, which can happen. It just means that the person didn't dry it very well. So I'm just going to take one of the wipes that I have and just wipe it off a little bit. And I'm not worrying about getting super clean. I'm just going to wipe that off a little bit. So if that happens to you, that's fine. And I may have to swap it out. We'll see how it works. Okay. So what I'm going to want to do is tilt the heart on its side. So this is the left atrium. So you see left ventricle, left atrium. And what I'm going to want to do is start a cut right here. So I'm going to go down through that left atrium. I'm going to go down through that left ventricle. Okay. So I'm going to just make sure got nice and deep in there. I'm going to set the scalpel down. Okay. And I'm going to put my fingers in here and see if I am starting to pull it away. All right, here it's still held a little tighter. So I'm going to go back and I'm moving my fingers out of the way. See that? I'm going to go back to that area. Go down a little bit. Set the scalpel down. Okay. All right, that looks better. Okay. Now I'm going to tilt the heart, kind of stand it on its vessels at the top. Hold on the side so that I am not in danger of my fingers. Okay. Come around this way. Okay. Move slowly with that scalpel. Okay. Now that I've gotten over here, tilt it on its side. It's a little easier. Continue cutting like this. Now when I set the scalpel down, now what I want to do is try to be able to, all right, so see that little part right there? Let's cut that. Okay. Still have some held right here. So I'm going to reach again down here with my scalpel. Set the scalpel down. I don't want to try to do both at the same time. Reach in again. Okay. Okay, looks good. Because what I want to do is this. Open up the heart. So now it's kind of starting to fall away. So what I'm going to do is go in here, kind of slice at those things that are keeping it from opening. Slice it down like this. And there we go. Now we have the heart opened up. Okay? And we're going to be able to see a lot more now. So first, you can see if you feel it inside here, it's kind of slippery, which is important because it's going to need to have the blood flow. Okay? So we have the heart cut open like this. And then we're going to have to do some looking and labeling. Okay? So let's move on to that stuff. Alrighty. So here is, so if I fold it back up real quick, you can see that was where that apex was. Okay, so I'm going to label that apex again. Do you remember we used white? So I'm going to label that right here. That is the apex. I could have labeled it on this side, okay, either side. And then, which means this space. So this is the muscle, right? So first of all, look how thick the muscle is around the left ventricle. And then look how thick it is at the right ventricle. It's a lot thinner, right? Okay, so the left ventricle much thicker in muscle. Why? It has to pump blood to the whole body, okay? So left ventricle is going to be in here. Now these little cords right here, these are the chordae tendineae, okay? And they're the things that control the valves of the heart. So I'm going to stick an orange label on these, those little stringy looking things, those chordae tendineae. They're controlling the valves, which is going to control and the flow of blood to prevent backflow, okay? And then let's see, okay? Right here, this space in between the walls of the left these are the walls of the left ventricle. So this is actually the left ventricle in here. And we used black to label that. So let's label that black. So that's going to be in that space. Remember, just make sure not to label it on that same spot as the chordae tendineae. And then this little spot in here is going to be the right ventricle. So we had light blue for that one. So we're going to go back to light blue and get that just inside of there. Okay, so we're labeling that the right ventricle. Okay, now remember these chordae tendineae control the valves. So coming out of the left ventricle is where you're going to see the path leading to the aorta up here. Okay, coming out of the left ventricle into that aorta. So this up here, that is the aorta. So that is purple. Okay, that path coming out of the left ventricle into this big vessel up here. Okay. What else can we see? This right here, that is the right atrium. Okay, we didn't cut too much into that, and that's okay. All right, this little one, which we did cut, you could see how much thinner the muscle is on that. That is the left atrium, and that was red. So we're going to label that one. And that's why we start on the left side, so we know that we cut through at least one of the atria. So left atrium, this representing the left ventricle, the chordae tendineae, the apex. Then we have the right ventricle, the right atrium, the aorta, okay? And in between the two sides of the heart, between the left and the right side, is going to be the septum, okay? And we're going to use a dark blue to label it. So I just want to make sure you understand that that septum is going to be the divider between the right side and the left side of the heart. Okay. Now remember, I could have labeled these things on this side easily. Here's the left ventricle, right? The space here. That's the wall of the left ventricle. Left atrium up here. Here we have the septum in between, and then the walls of the right ventricle. So the right ventricle in here. Up here would be where the right atrium is. Okay, so we can see all of these wonderful things on both sides, the apex right here. Okay, so whichever side you choose to label, I chose to label the one where I could see the aorta more clearly. Okay, and then you are going to take another picture in a moment. So you can see here's one of those valves. Here you can see another valve right here. Okay. So the chordae tendineae are those stringy things, but what I want you to do is label one of those flaps that is a valve. Okay, and we are going to use pink. Okay, I know we used pink before, but that's okay. I'm going to label just one of these little flaps, okay, to make it clear that I understand that that's the valve. That is what blocks the blood from backflowing if it's working correctly, right? So I'm just trying to pin it over a little bit so that it's clear what I have it attached to. And this pin is just being difficult. That's okay. All right, so I want to make sure it's on that valve, okay? So when I take the picture, I may have to hold it like this, okay, in order for that pin to be clear, because the rest of the pins I can see. And then you are going to take another picture, okay? And then we are going to remove the pins, okay? And that is the view showing the inside of the heart. And I'm going to talk about the last thing that we're going to do. Okay, so just a couple other things to be aware of. If you are the non-dissecting person, okay, and you wish to point something out to your lab partner who may have trouble because you are following the directions and they're doing the dissecting, you will not be wearing gloves, right? So you would have a ungloved hand, and you can use the probe and point out and say, I think this is the chordae tendineae. Yes, it is. I think there is the apex, to help your partner, because the pins have been touched with gloves and you do not want to touch them without gloves. So you need to have a partner without gloves on who can use either the pointer, the probe like this, as a pointer. Point that would be the aorta. There is the left atrium. Or alternately, you can use the tweezers if you need to grab something or point. Either tool is okay for that. Okay. If you wish to, you can use this hand lens magnifying glass to get a closer view of some of that amazing heart structure, okay, especially the chordae tendineae and inside the right and left ventricle. It is very interesting. And also looking at the structure of the heart muscle itself that we cut through. This is a great tool to do that, okay, so definitely make use of it. All right, so again, that is what is available for the partner who is not gloved. Okay, the gloved partner is the dissector, right? Okay. All right, so let's talk about cleanup. How are you going to clean up? All right, so I'm going to take this heart, close it up. Okay, remember this bag that had closed up? I'm going to open it back up, put this heart inside, like that. Okay. All right, you're going to get a paper towel. Not using the tissues at your desk. Tissues are for noses, okay? I'm going to set both the scalpel and the ruler, and if I had any other tools on the tray, I'm going to set them on this paper towel. Okay. And then I'm going to take this tray and I'm going to slide it into this bag. Okay. Why? Because I want to dump that juice out into there. Okay. Take the tray out. You see I dumped all the juice. Then I'm going to want to bend this in half. I'm going to go toss this in the garbage. Okay, remember I took all of those pieces off, mostly, dumped the juice into the Ziploc bag, right? And now I'm going to toss this. Okay, then I'm going to make absolutely sure that this bag is 100% closed up. Okay. And I'm going to put it in the box that Mrs. Jenkins has available for me. Now, if you did not finish, okay, there is a possibility of extending it to the next day. So let Mrs. Jenkins know. She'll tell you where to put this heart instead of in the box. Okay, so that's going to go into the box. So now what do I need to do? Well, I need to clean up the rest. Okay. We are going to use these wipes right here. And, okay, so we're going to take the scalpel and we are going to wipe it off. And we're going to set it on a clean paper towel. Otherwise, that's silly, right? I used this, so I'm going to clean this off really well with these wipes. Okay. I am going to clean off the other tools I used. So I'm going to clean off the tweezers. Even if you don't think you use them very much, still wipe them off. And then the scissors. Okay. Wipe those all off. And then you need to do the same thing. So I'm going to dump these out. Okay. I'm going to wipe the inside of this little container. And then I'm going to just wipe off each of the individual pins. Okay. Also, don't forget, here is the hand lens magnifying glass. Don't forget to wipe that off as well. Okay, so get all of that cleaned off. So you're going to finish cleaning those pins. Okay. Okay, now that you've finished, all right, you should have your 10 pins cleaned. Okay, in the clean container, all of your tools cleaned, and you have them resting on a clean paper towel. You're going to make sure you just dry them off. We don't want to return the tools wet, so use that paper towel you had them resting on to make sure each tool is dried off. Be extra careful when using the scalpel. Then you are going to place the scalpel back in here, okay? And then you are going to return the tools where they belong, okay? So to make it simpler, these were already ready for you, so you can, now that you're finished, return them to the correct color location in this container, right? So they were ready for you, but now you need to return them to the correct place. Everything else here should go into the correct spot where you got it from. And make sure that if you are done using these wipes, after you get your wipe to do the cleaning, you close this container. Otherwise they dry out and then that does not help anyone. Okay. Here is how you are going to remove gloves. So you're going to grab this end, pull this up, grab this end, hold on to this, okay, so then nothing comes out. pull this one up, and now you kind of have both gloves together. So then you're going to throw this glove out, these set of gloves. You're going to throw out the paper towel you used to dry, throw out any wipes, okay? If you used any of these, disinfecting towelettes, if you had to clean something, you definitely need to throw all of that out. And then you should be finished.